Yeah, I mean, and that's a great place to start. Like, walk us through the due diligence process as it relates to. Let's start with like businesses under 5 million or under, like, I think under 5 million is probably good. 'Cause that's where I think the majority of this has been. Is, we're seeing a lot of deals go through the SBA, for financing and that kind of stuff. So let's talk. Let's just start there.
Yeah, sure. And look, I mean, I'll make a blanket statement up front, and I'm sure you hear this all the time, but every deal is different, right? And I can't overstate that enough. So there isn't one template and one form you can use for everything. But in general, you're right. There's a lot of sort of standard procedures you can follow and consistent themes you can look out for in terms of diligence. Diligence itself, I mean, it's really a general term, right? I mean, it doesn't mean anything in particular, and it can take a ton of different forms. I think most of the time people are thinking of financial diligence when they're, thinking about diligence itself, but you can have IT diligence, tax diligence, human resource diligence, environmental diligence, legal, et cetera, right? So there's 1,000 different avenues you can really go down in diligence. On the smaller end, of course, I think you're going to be mostly focused on the financial side, potentially some tax risks. You probably don't have huge staff, so there might not be that human resource risk and environmental risk and things like that. But either way, again, when I think diligence, it's really broad. We'll probably spend more of our time talking about the financial side, because I think that's what probably most people, that's going to take place in every deal, and probably where most people are concerned about getting their best look. But just kind of to set the stage, it is really broad. In terms of the process, I would say, really you got to start as a buyer and really outline and come up with a plan and come up with the things that are most concerning to you. I would recommend working with a professional. I think there's a ton of good firms out there. Some of the firms I used to work for, some that we work with at Website Closers, there's many contacts we have, particularly if this is your first deal, right? I mean, if this is your first deal, I would say it's worth the investment. You can often find them for a fairly reasonable rate. And especially if it's an area you're not familiar with. If you're an IT guy, but you don't know finance, it's worth kind of using a financial advisor, particularly, again, that first time.
Is this something that you do, Brian? I know some of the other brokers do some advisory around specific aspects of the M&A process. Would you put yourself out there, you hold your shingle out there as someone to help a buyer with the due diligence process?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's my background. I did a lot of it. I haven't at the present time, I'm more focused on the brokerage side, but happy to help. Certainly happy to help people through the process and advise as well. So absolutely no problem.
Okay, sorry, I totally derailed you. Let's step through the process. So from the buyer's perspective, walk us through the due diligence process, if best you can, A to Z or start to finish.
Yeah, no problem. So again, I think as you think about it, and let's probably again more focused on the financial side here than some of those other areas I talked about. But really come up with those areas that are most critical and the sort of risk areas you see through your initial investigation of the company, through the materials that the brokers have sent to you, through what the sellers already shared with you. And I really think about diligence in kind of three ways, right? The first is a validation of what you've learned, what you've been told by the broker, what's in the sales materials. That's one. The second is also to try to identify and expose risks that haven't been shared yet, or things that haven't come to light. Of course, sellers are not going to be overly advertise or be overly open about every little risk that might be out there. So I think that's an important part of diligence, is to make sure you're exposing any of those risks that have not yet come to light. And the last kind of potentially an ancillary benefit or tangential benefit is really sort of a prep or a planning tool that you can use for when you take over that business, right? Help you think through your first 100 days or your first year. What did you identify in diligence? How does that help you plan what you want to do when you take over as owner? Are there things you would change? Are there things you want to look out for? I think that's just sort of the three ways to think about diligence very broadly. And I guess in terms of a more specific process, whether you're with an advisor or you're on your own, I think the first step is, of course, come up with a plan, right? Again, outline what those risk areas are. Is there customer issues you want to look into, supplier issues you want to look into, trends you want to pay more attention to, whatever those things are, but come up with a real specific plan of what you want to look at and what you want to cover. And then come up with how do you want to accomplish that? Are you able to ask for specific data that they can use to support? It's all going to be through Q&A. How's that going to happen? And of course, come up with a real timeline and a plan. I think, especially from a seller's perspective, the more organized you can be as a buyer, the better from the seller's eyes. Sellers are almost by definition extremely busy. They're trying to run their business, they're trying to grow their business as it is, and so the actual process of M&A is extremely time consuming. It can be frustrating, it can be challenging to balance both of those things. And I think anybody who's been through M&As can understand that. So the more organized you can be, the more specific you can be about setting a timeline, setting a goal, coming up with meeting cadences and those sorts of things will be helpful. Once you kind of have that basic plan, I think the next step is to come up with really a request list, a document request list, a question list that you're going to send across to your seller. A lot of diligence can be answered through documents, through readily available documents, whether it's through kind of a QuickBooks environment or through information that's available through Amazon, and whatever those things might be. I think you start with that question list, and hopefully the seller is prepared, right? Any good broker will hopefully be helping that seller get prepared. Hopefully you've got a data room set up so there is some information there already that you can begin with. But once you have your request list set up, what I would say is balance that request list against what's already available in the data room, and then look for information and send it across to the seller. Look for information to be sent as a starting point. I think, again, to respect the seller's time, to create a more efficient process, it's probably the first step to look through what's available, really dig into the data that's available, look at the financial statements, look at any other supporting documents that are out there. I think showing that willingness as a buyer to dig in on your own, look at the data, and not expect the seller to hold your hand through the whole process, it'll go a long way, right? Again, trying to make this an efficient process. You want your questions answered, but at the same time, a seller's got a business to run. Trying to make it more efficient for them, I think, makes the process better for everyone. So do your homework, spend your time, look at the data room, look at the information that's out there. Try to answer the questions the best you can. You're not going to answer everything, of course, and there will be a need for Q&A. So I think, after the request list is out, you spend some time in the data room. Next step is really going to be Q&A with the buyer. And again, come prepared to that, right? Have answered what you can ahead of time. Have reference the documents that are already there in your discussions with the seller. Coming prepared will really put you in a better light with that seller. I don't know how many times you may have seen this, and I certainly have in the process in the past, where sellers get extremely frustrated by buyers that just show up, ask 100 questions, 50 of them there's already an answer for in the data room, where you can tell that the buyer wasn't prepared. So just in terms of making it a good, clean, efficient process, be prepared, have real questions ready, and make sure you've done your homework the best you can ahead of time.
Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications about new videos and interviews. And introduce yourself in the comments. Are you a buyer or a seller?